You're the best closer in New York City. You make $10 million a year. You wear bespoke suits. You drive a Porsche through Manhattan traffic like it personally owes you something. You live in a penthouse with a view most people only see in real estate ads they'll never afford, and you never lose. Not rarely. Never. Level 1. The morning routine. 5:30 in the morning. You wake up. No alarm. You don't need one. Your body runs on the same schedule every single day. And discipline doesn't ask for permission. You go to the gym before the sun's fully up. You don't talk to anyone there. You're not there to socialize. You're there to remind yourself, physically, that you can push through resistance and come out the other side stronger. That's not really about fitness, it's rehearsal. You shower. You put on a suit that costs more than most people's monthly rent. Not because you need to impress anyone, but because how you carry yourself in a room starts before you say a single word. You look in the mirror for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to think one sentence. Today, I win. You grab a coffee on the way out. You don't check your phone, not because you're above it, because the first hour of your day belongs to you, and everyone else can wait until you've decided you're ready for them. Here's the thing most people misunderstand about confidence like this. It's not a personality trait you're born with. It's built deliberately, morning after morning, in moments nobody's watching. By the time you walk into your office, you've already won something today. You just haven't told anyone yet. Level 2. The office. 7 a.m. You walk into the firm and you can feel it. The way conversations pause for half a second. The way junior associates straighten up without meaning to. Everyone knows your name. More importantly, everyone knows your record. You sit down. You review the day's cases. Not skimming, actually reviewing. Because the version of you that walks into a meeting underprepared doesn't exist. You have 3 meetings today. You'll win 2 outright. You'll postpone the 3rd. Not because you're not ready, but because timing is a weapon, just like preparation is. An associate leans into your office at some point and asks the question everyone eventually asks. How do you do it? How are you always so sure? And your answer is the same every time. I don't hope. I know. Here's what that actually means, underneath the one-liner. You don't win because you're the smartest person in the room, though you usually are. You win because by the time you're in that room, you already know 3 moves ahead, what the other side is going to say, what they're afraid of, and what they haven't told you yet, that you've already figured out anyway. That's not talent. That's preparation disguised as instinct. Level 3. The client. 11 a.m. A billionaire walks into your office, expensive watch, tighter jaw than usual, the specific kind of nervous energy that money can't hide. He's in trouble, and he knows it. I need you to fix this, he says. You lean back. I can, but it's going to cost you. Name the price. $2 million. Half now, half when I win. He signs without blinking, because he's not actually paying for legal work. He's paying for the one thing his money hasn't been able to buy anywhere else today. Certainty. The feeling that whatever chaos is happening in his world right now, it's about to stop being his problem. This is the part of the job most people never see clearly. You're not selling law. Law is the vehicle. What you're actually selling is the guarantee that sits underneath it. Take a real version of this. A mid-sized company's board is about to fire their CEO over a botched acquisition. Their general counsel quietly forwards you an old email, a board approval from years back, buried in an archive, showing they'd signed off on the exact risky clause that caused the disaster. You don't threaten anyone with it. You simply frame it as a settlement catalyst, a polite way of saying, fight this, and I make this email the center of a very public conversation. The board folds. Your client walks away with a $2.5 million consulting fee and stock options that vest immediately. One email turned into leverage. turned into an outcome nobody in that boardroom saw coming an hour earlier. This is why you're the best. Not because you argue harder, because you find the lever nobody else noticed was already sitting on the table. Level 4, the courtroom. 2 p.m. You walk into the courtroom, and the judge knows your name before the clerk even announces the case. Opposing counsel knows your reputation too. You can see it in the extra minute they spend organizing papers that don't need reorganizing. You present your case without raising your voice once. No dramatics. No theater for the jury. Just precision. Then you corner the witness. Not aggressively, surgically. One question, calmly delivered, that they clearly weren't prepared to answer. You watch the exact moment their composure cracks, just slightly, just enough. You win. You walk out afterward without smiling, without any visible celebration. You just move on to the next thing, because celebrating implies the outcome was ever in doubt. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Sitting underneath a moment like that, the law, in practice, isn't purely about who's factually right. It's about who controls the framing, the timing, and the pressure in the room. Truth matters. Truth without leverage loses to leverage with a decent story more often than anyone in law school wants to admit. That's not cynicism. That's just what actually happens once you've been in enough rooms like this one. Level 5. The pressure. 6 p.m. back at the office. 50 unread emails sitting in your inbox, and you ignore every single one of them for now. Your name partner walks in, tension visible before he even says a word. We have a problem. We don't, you say. You have a problem. It's not arrogance exactly. It's the fact that you've already solved 3 problems today that other people thought were unsolvable. And you've learned that the fastest way to actually help someone is to first make it clear whose responsibility the mess actually is. Here's a version of the leverage that makes this kind of confidence possible. A tech startup is being acquired, and the buyer's attorneys are pushing to strip the founder of any real control post-acquisition. You surface a ruling, a founder's veto clause that courts have upheld even when the buyer claims they didn't fully understand what they were agreeing to. You use that precedent like a crowbar, forcing the buyer to preserve the founder's control, and in the same breath, you extract a guaranteed leadership bonus for your client that the other side never planned on paying. That's the weapon you've built yourself into. Not intimidation, precedent, timing, and the willingness to use both without hesitation. But something else is true in this exact moment too, sitting underneath all of it. You're alone in it. There's no one in that 50 email inbox asking how your day actually went. You catch yourself thinking, just for a second, is this actually worth it? And the answer you give yourself, the one you've given yourself for years now, is yes, because you're the best. Whether that answer is still true starts to feel less certain some nights than others. Level 6. The night. 9 p.m. You leave the office. You go to a bar, order a whiskey, and don't say much to anyone. A woman approaches. You're polite, brief. I'm not interested. Not because you're incapable of connection, because connection requires time you've already spent entirely on other people's crises today. You go home. You pour another drink. You look out at the city from the penthouse that's supposed to represent everything you've built. And there's a thought that surfaces. One you don't say out loud to anyone, because there's no one there to say it to. I have everything. But do I have enough? You answer yourself the way you always do. I will, because I always win. But here's the thing about that answer. Said alone in an empty apartment, at 10 o'clock at night, it's starting to sound less like confidence and more like something you're trying to convince yourself of. Level 7. The legacy. 11 p.m. You're back at your desk, because the day doesn't actually end, it just changes location. You review tomorrow's case. You don't sleep yet. You prepare, because preparation has never once let you down. And in that quiet moment, something shifts in how you think about all of this. You're not just building a career anymore. Somewhere along the way, without fully noticing when it happened, you started building a legacy, a version of your name that outlasts any single case, any single deal, any single win. One day, they'll teach negotiation tactics with your name attached to them, not because you were lucky, because you understood something most people in your position never fully grasp. Leverage isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about finding the one thing, an email, a precedent, a moment of well-timed silence that changes what everyone else believed was possible. You close the file, you turn off the light, and the realization that actually stays with you isn't that you won today. It's that somewhere in the last decade, you stopped just playing this game. You became the standard everyone else in the room is now measured against.